Hey everyone, visit my website, saracarter.com for the latest stories and updates. You'll get everything there. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at SarahCarterDC. Finally getting those Twitter followers back to where they were before, Twitter decided to take everybody down a couple of 100,000. So today we are joined by a very good friend of mine. She is somebody that I respect immensely, somebody who I believe we should all emulate. These are people that are like the unspoken heroes. Her name is Rosi Orozco. She is a former congressional member from Mexico. She is actually Mexican national. She lives in Mexico, but she fights human trafficking. I want you to listen to this. She fights human trafficking and slavery worldwide. And why did I bring her on the show? Because I am so tired of the left lying to you and lying to all of you about what is happening at the border. This is not helping anyone. Opening that border and creating this chaos is only perpetuating, and I've said this over and over again, the nefarious operations of the drug cartels and human traffickers. And I'm bringing Rosi Orozco on the show, a former Mexican congressional member and a person whose nonprofit has fought human trafficking and slavery all over the world, to say here on this show that this needs to stop and to talk truthfully about what is happening on our border. So I feel blessed to have her on the show today. You are not going to want to miss her. It is very important that you listen to her. She will tell you the truth, unlike anyone else will tell you. And she'll say it with the gritty disparity, and I can't even begin to explain, with the reality that most people do not want to talk about. What is happening on our border should have never happened, and it shouldn't be happening now to begin with. And President Biden, you need to stop this. Please follow and subscribe. Get all the links at saracarter.com. That is saracarter.com. And while you are there, I would like for you to sign up for our email list so that you do not get shadow banned. Let's not have this anymore. This is America. We've got a First Amendment. People are allowed to say what they need to say without having Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram secret, I guess they're secret committees, go through everything and try to delete us. This is not, this is not 1984. So get there, sign up for the email list. I promise you'll get the latest stories. You'll also get the latest podcasts, and you and I will always be in communication. Guys, before I get to Rosi Orozco and the issues with the border and human slavery and trafficking, I want to talk to you about a group, an organization that I am so grateful to have as a sponsor of this show, because they do the fight that we can't do in Washington, D.C. They are out there fighting for us every single day. And that is the Association of Mature American Citizens. That is AMAC. By joining AMAC, you're actually taking the very first steps in saving the America that you love. AMAC offers an alternative to just about every benefit that AARP offers. But guess what? It doesn't have that liberal agenda. AMAC's benefits save you money and potentially a lot of it. Take advantage of the many benefits that AMAC offers by becoming a member. It's just that simple. I stand with AMAC, and I hope that you will too. I encourage you to join AMAC today. Join AMAC at amac.us/Carter. That's amac.us/Carter. The benefits of membership are great, but the cause is even greater. Join today at amac.us/Carter. I don't know how I should begin this conversation, but it is a tragic day when you think that in 2022, there is more human slavery on this planet than we have probably ever been able to document in the past. And that is a reality, and that is a fact. And not only do people exploit this behavior, this horrific behavior, human upon human, but we, by ignoring what is happening or by allowing our government to continue to perpetuate this horrible behavior at the border, these lies, we allow human traffickers and drug cartels to move people throughout our country and across that border at the expense of so many lives. Remember, just 53 people. That was just one incident in the back of an 18-wheeler trailer. I was told there were 4 children in that group, men and women, all locked into the back of an 18-wheeler trailer that went up to 170 degrees inside. Out here in the state of Texas, in San Antonio, actually just miles from my home. That's horrible. People should not be suffering like that. They should not be living under that. And by the way, in the United States, we are faced with a very, very serious national security issue and a very serious crisis in this country. And I talk about it on every single podcast. I bring my guests on. We talk about it with this increase in illegal immigration and trafficking into our country, to the point where we won't be able to sustain it financially. We won't be able to sustain it socially. It is breaking our cities apart and our small towns and our hospitals and our resources. And it's harming not only Americans, but it's harming all of us. It's harming the people that are being brought into this country. I want you to listen to this story. MS-13 members convicted for sexual exploitation of a minor. This is going to be hard to hear, but I want you to listen to this press release from our Department of Justice. A jury convicted 7 MS-13 gang members and associates on charges of sex trafficking a minor under the age of 14 and other child sexual exploitation offenses. Rosi is going to talk to you about this. She is actually in Spain. She has been working in Spain with the authorities on rescuing children in Spain. She has rescued children in Mexico, children in the United States. She will talk to you about that as well. But I want you to hear about these MS-13 gang members here in the United States operating these sex rings with children. These horrific monsters, these pedophiles. According to court documents and records, evidence presented at trial in 2018, this was August of 2018, the 13-year-old victim ran away from a youth home in Northern Virginia. Shortly after running away, the victim was introduced to members of MS-13. Members of the gang told her they would be her family and protect her if she joined the gang. Gang members then beat the victim 26 times with a baseball bat as part of the gang initiation. Gang members then sex trafficked her in Virginia and Maryland using the currency of cash and drugs. In one instance, while in Virginia, men lined up to have sex with the victim in a wooded area behind 2 of the defendant's apartment complexes. She was also harbored in various apartments in Northern Virginia where men paid her and her handlers cash for sex. The victim was later beaten again with a bat 26 times as a form of gang punishment. Shortly after the second bat beating, the victim was transported to Maryland, where she was sold to numerous gang members and other customers in exchange for cash and drugs, including cocaine. Law enforcement officials recovered photographs and videos of the victim being sexually exploited, along with numerous social media messages regarding the trafficking and sexual exploitation of her. I want to cry when I read that. I can't even begin to imagine what that poor child went through. I can't even begin to tell you how many times I have seen children living in these very gang-ridden, squalid neighborhoods in the United States. These are illegal immigrants, many of them, and some of them legal, living in poverty with no supervision, with nobody to turn to, and almost everybody ignoring them. I want you to think about all of the people, Democrats or Republican alike, or anybody even in the middle, that think that allowing people into our country through the border is the humane thing to do because God knows what they're fleeing. They aren't fleeing, the majority of them, anything than what they're coming to, because they're coming here illegally. And when you enter a nation illegally and you are exploited by gangs and by criminal organizations, and then ignored by the rest of the population, because a lot of the same people that have these, a heart of gold for while they're talking, not in tangible terms, but a heart of gold while they see people crossing across that border, would never for an instant adopt a child like this. Some of them would not, most of them would not, or bring these children to live in their home. These children, many of them unaccompanied minors that are being trafficked into the United States, whether they're being put for a short period of time into a facility that we taxpayers pay for and then released to people who we assume are their parents, but we have no idea are their parents or family members or guardians, because we don't know what's going to happen to them. What we have seen in our country, what we've seen happen with the rise of fentanyl and the death of our own children and the deaths of these children and the human traffickers and the exploitation of young children for sex. Can you even begin to imagine what that must be like? I covered stories with Sean Hannity on his show out here in Texas with the police, talking directly to the American people about what is going on here. Texas DPS, cantinas, where young women are being held captive because they're paying back. They're paying back the cartels for their trip across the border, supposedly. They would force women. In fact, they had one woman that they rescued out here, a show that I did. She was pregnant and she was forced to have sex while she was pregnant. I mean, sometimes 30, 40 times a day. Or doing sex acts. Can you even imagine what that must be like? To be raped that way, to be treated like that? I mean, how do you even get over that? How do you even recover? That's what I'm going to be talking to Rosi Orozco about. I have daughters. I can't even imagine what my daughters, I can't even imagine. I don't even want to go there. And I warn them all the time. And by the way, you all should be warned. I mean, we have seen sex trafficking and, the trafficking of young women in our country jump exponentially. Some of the girls are lured on the internet by men that are much older than them, who have lied to them, who try to get them, vulnerable young women who may have low self-esteem, who may be having issues at home, who may be addicted to drugs, luring them and young men out of their homes. And they end up in these sex trafficking rings here in the United States. And we've seen that. We've also seen people kidnapped. We've reported on that, where children are taken. And, it's later discovered that they were taken by a group that puts them into a sex trafficking ring. We live in some really bad times. I still believe there are more good people than there are bad, but we need to warn our children about them. You need to warn your children about the possibility of people like this. There's this interesting story, and I'm not going to say who, but maybe I should just talk about it, but it's like how children are approached, in the malls. And without saying who this happened to, it happened. I knew someone who was approached in a mall, a young person who was approached in the mall and by some men who were trying to lure her outside with about modeling, about this, about that. Now, I'm not saying that these people were bad, but more than likely they were. But the young lady did the right thing. She did the right thing. She basically just looked at them and turned around and said, "Get out of my face," and walked away. And you never, ever, ever go from point A to point B with someone. Never. I don't care if they want to help you with your groceries to your car. You do not go from point A to point B with anyone. And I'm going to talk to Rosi about that and about what she's learned, because so many of the victims, and I've had the opportunity to speak to some of these victims, and I'm going to bring some of these victims on future podcasts, victims who have now come out, they're speaking out, they're fighting for other victims about trafficking. And this is going to be a story about our border. This is going to be a story that most of you do not want to hear, but you got to hear it. You absolutely have to hear it, because it can actually save someone's life. It could save the life of someone you love, or it could save the life of a child. When someone tells me oh, they don't even know me. It's crazy, you know, and I'll see tweets sometimes, or someone will say, it's because you don't like the immigrants. You're anti-immigrant. I'm like, I speak Spanish. My mother's from Cuba. I love immigrants. I love the courage and the strength that people have to leave everything behind and find another life. It takes a lot to do that, but you have to do it the right way. You have to do it the right way. And that's what this show is going to be about. And it's going to be an example of what we have to do as Americans, not only to protect ourselves, but to protect the most vulnerable, to protect children that really have no one else in the world but us. And that means President Biden, DHS Secretary Mayorkas, and all of you, shut down that border. Stop lining the pockets of the drug cartels and the human traffickers. Stop lining the pockets of these corrupt foreign governments, and stop lying to the American people. Because I tell you this, I'm going to call you out on it every second of every day. And I'm going to call you out on it because the responsibility, when you choose to ignore and you choose to perpetuate that behavior, the responsibility is on you. And every child that dies, and every child that's raped, and every child that is trafficked under your administration because you want it to happen is on your shoulders. It's on your shoulders. And that is what we are going to be talking about in this episode today with Rosi Orozco. Before I get there, again, great American, someone who I love, Mike Lindell, has amazing products with MyPillow and a great company. Guys, we've got to support the people that are making a difference in our nation, the people that actually care about us. And right now we have an awesome offer. It's a current offer for MySlippers. You're going to be able to save $90 on MySlippers. How crazy is that? Get an early start on Christmas. Enjoy your Christmas with your family without having to worry about going to the mall and buying presents for so-and-so and a cousin's going to come over. Get those MySlippers now. Save $90. Regular price, $139.98. Guess what? Right now you can get them for $49.98. $49.98 with the promo code Carter. You got to use the promo code Carter. Go to mypillow.com/Carter or call 1-800-685-7221. That is 1-800-685-7221 and get MySlippers at $49.95. While you're there, I want you to take advantage of all the deep discounts on all of the products, everything from their bed sheets to their dog pillows. I mean, I've got it all and all of it. And they're, by the way, their towels. Mike Lindell's towels are fantastic. Everything you get there is top quality. So I want you to go to mypillow.com/Carter or call 1-800-685-7221 today for the most comfortable slippers you'll ever own and get Mike's book for free. mypillow.com/Carter or call 1-800-685-7221. I feel so blessed, and without any further delay, I've got my friend Rosi Orozco here on the podcast. And this is a woman that literally, like I said at the opening of this podcast, is changing the world step by step by just doing her part. Rosi, thank you so much for joining us.
It's such a joy for me to see you again. And of course, a great team that works with you.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Rosi. I don't even know how to begin. I want to let everybody know, first met Rosi Orozco when I was working at The Blaze with Glenn Beck. We actually were putting together a documentary, which was just such a passion of mine and still is, on human trafficking and human slavery in the modern age. And it was, you know, this is work from the heart, I believe, because there is so much, I think, horrors in our world that only very few of us have the opportunity to be able to share those stories and actually put a stop to it. Rosi is one of those people. She opened my eyes to so much, and we lost touch for a little while. I felt terrible. I would see all of your, your tweets. I would see all the work you're doing, and you started this phenomenal nonprofit, this group, Comisión Unidas Versas Trata. Now, I may have mispronounced that, but let me know if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
what does that mean in English?
United Against Trafficking.
Versas Tratas.
It's United Against Trafficking. Yeah.
United Against Trafficking. Now, I speak fluent Spanish. I understand it for the most part, but there are some times where I don't want to get something wrong, and I think this is really important. Rosi, you just got back from Spain. First, fill everybody in on what you were doing in Spain, and then we're going to take a walk back to why this topic became such an important part of your life.
Well, I was in the house of the organization Amar Dragoste. These people goes to the places where is all the girls that are in situation of prostitution, Romanians, Colombian, Peru, Ecuador, Nigeria. It's terrible because you don't see Spanish people. You see all the vulnerable people that are trapped in this horrible trade slavery. And we went to try to help them by talking to them. We took some packages of condoms, tissues, and lubricants and things that they need, and that way we were able to talk to them. You could see the cars of the Romanians guys trying to scare us and scare the girls, and it's really terrible because there is no law like in Mexico. In Mexico, 10 years ago, June 14, 2012, we got the law. That was the only reason why I was, as congresswoman, I didn't grow in a politician family or anything. But when I saw that the girls that were in this shelter, that is Fundación Camino a Casa, they couldn't get justice like it's happening in Spain, then my heart was broken. And when I had the opportunity to be a candidate, it was incredible that I won. I was not supposed to win. It was a very difficult area where I was competing. And when I won, I gave to all the friends in the Congress, 500 Congress people, a letter and a DVD of the film Human Trafficking with Mira Sorvino. So that's the way I started. Mm-hmm.
That's so incredible because your ability to get, first of all, to be elected into Congress in Mexico, like you said, not coming from a political family or a family of power. And then your entire goal was to help save the lives of so many in Mexico. Mm-hmm. I want to clarify one thing. You can't get into those areas like you were in Spain unless you kind of present yourself as somebody who's coming in for medical purposes. Mm-hmm. Or assistance. Mm-hmm. So when you brought in the condoms, the tissues and everything, you were coming in in an effort to talk to these young ladies and infiltrate the group in an effort to see what you could do to get them out later, right?
Yeah, you can see those pictures in my Twitter, Rosi with Orozco. In my Twitter, I post some pictures. Of course, I'm not showing faces, of course, very respectful for the ladies who were in that situation. But it broke my heart, for example, a girl that was taken when she was 16 years old, a Romanian girl, and she was now 22, and she was so scared of a violent death. 40% of these ladies will die in a very violent way. 40%, Sara. That's the numbers, and it's terrible. So many of them are killed in the worst nightmare that you can imagine.
I want you to tell the audience, because I know so many people listen to the show, and I'm taking a different direction here because I really want people to understand the horrors of sex trafficking and how sometimes it is disguised as a legitimate business, or, the prostitution ring is it's hidden within. It's like in the shadows. We were talking about this many years ago, and I remember, there was a lot of sex trafficking, for example, in Thailand and other parts of the world where they would have sex tours. And there was something that you said to me, a lot of men and some women think that because it's legal in certain areas, or because these are sex tours, that somehow this is a voluntary action by the people who are performing these sex acts or these young girls. And you told me it wasn't. You opened my eyes. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think the way you explained it to me, the way you explained it to some of the men we were talking to was really a game changer.
Well, like Carla Jacinto, for example, she was trapped at 12 years old. She comes from a family where the mother is violent, so she's been spanked since she's baby. Then the father starts to abuse on her when she's 5 years old. She becomes 12 years old. She meets a trafficker that is 22 years old. So he is a professional on deceiving, on getting her to be in love. He promised so much. The cousin says, "Oh, what did you do to my cousin? My cousin is so in love with you. He wants to marry you." So imagine that little girl, 12 years old, who comes from a family with so much violence, and now he's with a guy who has an incredible new car, a sport car, that it was a Trans Am, red Trans Am, and then shows that he has so much money and promised her to marry, takes her to Tlaxcala, where most of the pimps come from, and gets her a life that is so beautiful for her because she didn't even have to cook or do anything. 3 months she was living like a princess, and then this guy says, "I'm having problems. I need you to help me now. I need you. I have give you everything, but now I need you to help me." Of course, she says, "How can I help?" She was thinking, I will sell clothes and I will go, selling something. And then they took her to Guadalajara, that is like 5 hours from Mexico City, and take her to a brothel where she is raped for the first time, many times by many people, crying and not understanding how this man that says that loves me, now he's doing this to me. So he started to spank her, to hit her very hard with sticks, with chains, with boots, with silver metal in the point of the boot, burn her with an iron. Even in his most intimate part, she was burned with an iron. Because one day he was mad, saying, "Oh, you bring, something, a mark that a client did, and oh, you were so hot. Okay, you're going to know what is hot." So he turned the iron and burned her, burned Carlita. So when she was 12, also, she was taken to a hotel where the police came. So she was with hope. Oh, the police is coming. The police raped her in their uniform and filmed her and said, "If you say something, I have this video, I will show you your family, so you cannot denounce." So that's the way the traffickers will block them. For them, they won't go to the police, they won't go to the authorities. They know the authorities are with the pimps. So she was there, and the only thing that changed her life was one client between 43,000 beasts that raped her. One, Jose Calvario Becerra. It was a true man who said, "I don't want sex. I don't want to touch you. I just want to talk." And he started to be a regular client, only paying to say, you are very valuable. You are somebody, you are so young, you can escape. And he was the one who helped Carlita to be free.
It takes one person.
One.
And this is why when you're listening to Rosi and she's telling you a story of Carlita, there are many Carlitas.
Yeah.
There are many, many Carlitas. There are so many young girls and young boys and women that are being abused. Every day, Rosi, when I talk and I see what happens at the border and I see those young girls that come across, and some of them, you know, they've been raped. Some of them have been abused. They're unaccompanied minors. I think to myself, why are we allowing to perpetuate human trafficking and slavery? It's, for me, it's nothing about immigration. It's not, I don't even want to put immigration in. We need to revamp our immigration system. I'm talking about human crisis, a humanitarian crisis all around the globe. How many people are enslaved in modern times?
Well, 40,
I mean, it's incredible.
40 million, it said, and it's very important what you were saying about the migrants, because as I told you, most of the people that I talked to in those streets in Spain were all migrants. And something that is more important that we understand, Sara, is that 3 states in Mexico, I just said this in Vienna in an UN convention that we had on July the 1st. And it was a very important event from UN. And it was, I told them that 3 states from Mexico has closed all the strip clubs, the nightclubs where there is human trafficking. And that was very brave from the governors. And let me tell you, the first governor that did that was Coahuila State, had one of the cities, Torreon, was one of the 5 more dangerous cities in the world, Torreon, Coahuila. That was 2012. Right now, Torreon, Coahuila is one of the most secure cities in the whole country. Then the governor from Tamaulipas also, 2016, closed all these places, and they were the 3rd state with more violence in my country, Mexico. Now, this state is the number 26. So when you are really radical, because I can hear many governors saying that they fight one by one. Hey, but you open these places where they are being exploited, and you know that is a concentration camp, that the women that are there are migrants, that are vulnerable, that they don't have who protects them. And you give permission to these business people that are the worst people in the world to exploit the vulnerable, the poverty, the needed women in your place to earn money, dirty money. It's so sick, Sara.
It is sick. It is sick. And this is what, now I just remember something that you told me, and it goes with that story. And this is what you said to me. And I know you're going to remember this. You had said to me, and you had said to all the producers when we were working at The Blaze on this show, you had said that when someone participates in these sex acts or goes to these neighborhoods where these so-called legal sex acts are allowed to take place, just remember that the little girls or the older women, or even if they're 18 and over, who you're having sex with, who you're paying for this,
or raping
them, are usually there because they had been abused since they were children. Yeah. So you are literally abusing damaged goods over and over and over again. You are literally a part of the monstrous problem that is happening. There is no excuse. Even if you fly to Thailand and you think, oh, because they let it happen on this street, just remember, you said that one of those children were probably children that were locked in cages, being held as slaves and being forced to have sex.
Yeah, that's it, Sarah. And these people has to be so sick to pay to rape somebody, because that's what they do. They pay to rape them. That's a rape.
How big of a problem do you think this is in North America? And is it even possible to estimate how many people are trafficked each year in our countries, like in our hemisphere?
Yes. Well, if we have the border, we were listening that 600,000 people could be in the border coming and going out for the sex trade, because also we have in our border, like Tijuana, 90% of the people who comes to rape our Mexicans or our Latin Americans that are there in Tijuana are foreigners. So 90% are, more than 90% are foreigners. So it's a big, big problem that we all have to stop. And how can we stop it? By education, of course, by laws where we punish the clients, the perpetrators that are the last part of the chain of exploitation. We have to, like France has an incredible law. When I was in Spain, we were listening to the parliamentarians who wants to pass a law that is abolitionism, and the ambassador from France was there, and they have an incredible law, Sara, that is working very well, because that law gives a true exit to the women who are in situation in prostitution. How? You punish the client 1,500. 1,500 the first time I caught you. Second time, 3,750 euros. So that money goes to a fund for the girls who are in this situation. This Nigerian girl who doesn't know anybody, well, now knows that the authorities in France can give her the opportunity to study, to open a business, thanks to the money that is the punishment. And the man also goes to a school of Johns. I hate to call them Johns. I like to call them by their own names, because we should say John, I mean, not John.
Whoever, Fernando, John Smith,
Yeah.
Whoever,
the man who is doing that.
Steve.
Yeah. So
I agree. I agree, Rosi. Look, I was stunned, even with Ghislaine Maxwell, right? With the case, with Epstein, the most, notorious trafficker who somehow dies in the New York prison because supposedly he jumps off a second bunk. All of the so-called people in the black book, let's not call them Johns. We know one of them was Prince Andrew. We know there were powerful people with him. Others we can name names, but we can't accuse them because we have to have facts. But we know that he was hanging around a lot of important people. And who gets punished? Who ends up dead? Okay, Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, who was running all the girls. But what happened to all the men?
All the men
Where are the
who
clients?
went to these islands. Yes. All that men who went to those islands were the ones that raped those girls. And it's exactly what I was telling you at the beginning. I am in New York because the pimps from Tlaxcala brings so many vulnerable people to be slaves around this area. There is a
Explain
movie.
Explain La Scala.
Yeah.
So that people understand.
Tlaxcala is a state that now, with the governor Lorena Cuellar, are trying to change a culture of many years that these people were in places like Tenancingo. Many families had a business of slavery. So they are trained to be really Prince Charms and go to a girl and deceive her by love and bring them to the United States. There is a very famous documentary that is called From Tenancingo to New York. And that is so important to see it, to understand the problem. But there is a big case that just finished in 40 years on imprisonment for these traffickers. But the victims, even that United States has more money than Mexico, of course, we take care of the victims until they are not more vulnerable. We don't get money from the government. We have a web page that it's in the United States Help Us, kaleidoinc.org, kaleidoinc.org. We don't have
And I'm going to make sure to put all of this up on my website so that everybody can know exactly where they need to go if they are going to help.
Yes.
Because, and I stand behind this 100%. Everything that Rosi does, everything that she does openly, honestly, with transparency, and all over the world. 100% trusted. And that's why I'm going to Washington, D.C. with you this month. And I'm going to be at your event. But I'm going to let you go ahead. Go ahead and finish.
Well, these girls look at me through the webpage. One of them said, I have been looking at what you do for 8 years. And she was like very nervous to contact me. And she introduced me to another friend, both of them from this huge case that is 40 years. People are going to be in jail 40 years. It's a family from Tenancingo. But these two girls were so depressed. One of them tried to commit suicide. And I was so worried, Sara, because when I learned about human trafficking in 2005, the documentary that they show me to train me, that it's called Laila Forever, at the end, the little girl jumps from a bridge and kills herself. And I cry and cry for a week. And I promised myself that I was going to fight to restore these lives until they want to live. So when my husband says, what do you want for a special day that I will have tomorrow? I said, the thing that could really relieve me, because it's like something that heavy that I have. I have been promising these two young women that I was coming to New York to talk to them person by person. I've been talking so much by the phone, but I promised them one day I was coming. And it's very important when you promise somebody that has suffered so much to fulfill that promise. And I'm so happy. And my husband is my best partner, and I love him. I adore him. And he didn't even say, but no, immediately he said yes. And tomorrow I'm going to see them, to these two girls.
That is so amazing.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy because one of them, the one who tried to commit suicide, is living half an hour from where the traffickers of the family of the traffickers are. And also, it's very unfair, let me tell you, Sara, that they take the Mexican traffickers to jail. Clap, clap, clap. Perfect. But what about the deliverers? The nationals, the residents, the ones that the trafficker from Mexico has to bring the girl to somebody that has a resident, because they cannot operate. So the ones that are nationals, they are the ones who earn most money. They are called deliverers. They bring the girl, and the girl is like a pizza. They have carts, and they go to the migrants and to places where to the man say, chicas, you can have a new chica. And they sell in carts the service, and they deliver the girl to an apartment where 5 migrants are going to rape her. So these guys, the deliverers, no one is in jail, Sara. And they know.
Why is that?
I don't know. It's so unfair. Why they are not persecuted? I don't know cases where the deliverers from New York are in jail. So these girls are one, without read and write one of them, half an hour away from where she was trafficked. And there is no money for them after the trial. 8 years waiting for 40 years of sentence to these people, but they don't have a life after that. And
there's no way out.
no.
It's like they've been punished over and over again, like they're victims of abuse, physical and sexual and mental, and then they're re-abused again.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this in details. How are these victims? We know about how they were recruited. We know that some of how they recruit based on what you just told us. But what are they looking for? What type of person are they looking for? What are the usual age ranges? Does it matter if it's a boy or a girl? Does it matter where they get them from? Is it just, do they want to recruit them at a young age and then keep them until they're done with them? What is it?
Sara, I went 3 years to jails. Thanks to the authorities in Mexico City, they allow me to go to visit 17 traffickers. 4 of them, not me, but I present Jesus to them. I told them to make a prayer and to give their life to Jesus. 4 of them changed their life. 3 of them are giving their testimonies constantly. They already are out of jail. 1 of them is now a businessman in Tlaxcala. So the 4 of them has a different life. Only 4 from 17 is not very much, and I'm not proud of it, but at least 4 are not doing the same. But these guys, the ones that I talked to, were explaining me how they look for the most poor girl, especially they go very much to Veracruz. They were telling me Veracruz has very pretty girls, also Puebla, and very naive. They look for innocent, naive, very poor, very vulnerable, especially when they don't have the father. The father has gone out for looking for a better opportunities in life and leave them like they are like really like those
abandoned.
Yeah. So but these people are like those birds that are looking for the one that is weak,
like a hawk.
Yeah. So they are looking for the vulnerables, and what they do is to impress, to try to show the girl that they have money, that they have power, that they are really going to take care of them. They go to their families and they present themselves like a good man and give them so many gifts. But that they do for when they take them like to New York, they can say, and I know where your parents are, and I know you have a little sister, and if you don't do what I am telling you, your little sister is going to be one of my slaves. So that's the way they get the girls to not to escape and to do what they are asking to do. So it's
so
really
our
bad.
behavior, so our policy of just allowing all of this to happen is just lining their pockets because they're able to get away with it. Because we're not holding any of them accountable. We're not holding the clients accountable. We thank God for you and passing the law. We're able to hold some of the traffickers accountable, but the amount of money that they make, I mean, Rosi, I know you may not want to talk about this and tell me if you don't want to, but your life has been threatened because you have literally challenged some of the most monstrous people on this planet. You have literally, I mean, you are holding them accountable and you are a threat to their empires, to their cartels.
And right now, Sara, I am expecting that a very big case, worse than Epstein and Maxwell, will come to the light one day. But meanwhile, I am more threat than ever. And there is people trying to harm me more than only my life, because it's very powerful people. It's also another politician that is a very important politician in Mexico, and the victim, he knows that I have a victim. So in Mexico, there is people that is committed. For example, the the former prosecutor for money laundering. His name is Santiago Nieto. He made so many work, and the one who is now in the unit of financial, he's continuing persecuting the people that are trafficked. Through the money laundering, they are doing a lot of job, and I'm very proud of that unit because there is incredible people in there, and that's the way, that's the way we have to punish them. They do this for money.
Is it only big cities, or is it a problem everywhere where we're seeing sex trafficking? It's not just the big cities anymore, right? It's all across the country, right?
No, and the traffickers goes to the most far away little poor town to find the vulnerable, the last girl. Like it's a new book from a friend of mine, The Last Girl, because it's the last girl, the one that is in that little tiny town where there is hungry. It's the one that the pimps are going to look for it to turn her to a slave. That's the way they are powerful, because it's a very vulnerable person.
Right. So they're looking for anybody anywhere. And that's just, it doesn't matter. We could go to rural counties in Ohio or the biggest cities in New York, like where you're at. And we're going to find young women that are being trafficked. And now, thank God, we have those, in airports and in the bathroom stalls, phones that people can contact if they're being trafficked, that there's a way, there's someone to reach out to, but there's so much more that we need to do. Let me ask you this. How have U.S. border policies impacted human trafficking?
Well, the problem with 52 states that has different laws is that some of the states are very good on even punishing clients, or at least showing who are the clients. And there are some states where the traffickers are kings and queens. I mean that they have rights more than the victims. So you have the Mexico, the law that I passed with my great friends from the 61 legislatura, it's called. These 500 Congress people who voted unanimous with me, this law applies the same in all the country. And
that
this
is
law,
important.
Yeah, that was brilliant from the people who give me the directions on those 3 years that I was in Congress, and it was so good because now it depends on the will of the authorities. There are governors in Mexico, like Quintana Roo governor, now is doing a great job. Is working even with some people from the United States that are helping us in Quintana Roo, rescuing children, taking to jail the child pornographers, and of course, rescuing so many. But depends on the authorities. Some of the authorities are not helping, are not applying the law, even if it's the same law all over the country. And another thing important, Sara, is that it's not only sexual trafficking. In Mexico, we have many organizations that are criminal organizations who are getting boys and girls for committing kidnapping, for committing murder, for trafficking drugs. So that's another way to have a slave. We have also...
That's an important point.
Agriculture slaves, fishing men slaves, people who works as cleaning houses that are really indigents, that are slaves, that they don't have rights, that the people are not paying enough or not paying at all. So Mexico has a big problem on labor slavery, and the law that I passed also covers that, organ traffic, begging, forced marriage, because we have in our indigent people as a custom, as a tradition, sometimes that the father will sell the daughter for a forced marriage. And we are stopping that in Mexico with the law that we pass.
Well, I certainly hope that here in the United States, we listen and we do the same. We find a way to fight human trafficking in our nation and fighting human slavery. And I got to tell you, that begins also not with just every one of us, but at the federal level, where we don't allow people to be victims of abuse. And I want to thank you so much, Rosi. I know I've taken up so much of your time, but I want to thank you so
Sara.
much for everything you've done, for all of the great work you've done. I can't wait to see you in Washington, D.C. And I feel blessed that you're my friend. I feel blessed that I know you in my life. And I know you've made a difference for everyone listening here today.
And Sara, I think the people that are around New York could help these two women that I'm going to meet tomorrow. If somebody wants to really help them directly, maybe help one of them to have the lessons for learning to write and to read, for learning to speak English, to have a decent job, to live in an area that is not near the pimps. We have so much need just in that area around New York, and please help these girls.
What's the website that people can go to?
Kaleido Inc. with K, kaleidoinc.org.
And I'll be sure to post that on my website at saracarter.com, guys. And I'll put it on my Twitter as well as my Instagram feed. Thank you, Rosi.
Thank you, Sara. Thank you to everybody. God bless you.
So I hope you all got as much from Rosi Orozco as I did. She is a great friend. I'm bringing her back on the show. And her message is one that we all need to pay attention to, and one that I believe we all need to support. That is something that we can actively be a part of to try to help, young people all over the world, or people all over the world that are being held captive in slavery or being abused sexually. This is something that we need to pray on, and we need to help stop. God, we have to stop it. But before I wrap up the show, I want to talk to you a little bit about the Biden administration and its complete and utter failure on the border. I'm just going to move it on up, right? We've seen the humanitarian crisis. We have seen what's happened all over our country. But it's not just here. It's the Biden administration is failing on multiple levels. And Kamala is failing on multiple levels. I don't even think like she really is the border czar. I think that was just like a joke. The joke's on us. So despite being the border czar, Vice President Harris doesn't seem interested in solving any of the issues on the border. Peter Schweitzer had Guatemalan President Alejandro Giamatti. I've interviewed him before. I think he is just brilliant. And a great leader for the country of Guatemala. But he admitted that he has not spoken to U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris since January. He actually told Peter Schweitzer, I do think we need greater communication between the government of the United States and our government at least. That's what Giamatti said. So what did they talk about in January? I covered the stories. I was down there when Giamatti basically was standing, he had his mask on and she was coming up to hug him. And then, I was there when all of that craziness happened, and he basically wanted her out of the country because he didn't understand anything. This is what Giamatti said. She told me she didn't want me to appoint my attorney general. I want you to listen to this. She told me she didn't want me to appoint my attorney general. We didn't talk about human trafficking. That was the only time I spoke to her since she went to Guatemala, and the topic was not immigration. January, and this is something that is going to come up again on this show, because I'm very well aware of what's happening here and the reason why why they didn't want to appoint this attorney general in Guatemala. Why would the United States be so interested in that? It wasn't just Kamala Harris. Vice President Biden was just as interested in that when he was the vice president. Now, as President Biden, he's back into it again. I wonder why. I may have the answer for you, and I will definitely give that to you later. But instead of dealing with U.S. issues and issues that are important, like the border, which are important to all of our nations, that is what she focused on. It's politicking, folks, and it's controlling the purse strings in Central America. And all of these Democrats and all of their NGOs and all of the people that they are connected with, they are all lining their pockets. And the reason they want to control Central America is for money, pure and simple. Pure and simple. And to effectively change the political not only the political atmosphere in Central America and the Latin American countries, but to affect us as well. I am telling you, this is what they are doing. We always seem to think like, with this short-sightedness. It's hard to think in the big picture, right? Like, what's really going on here? It's easier to just look at the little pieces. But sometimes when you connect the dots on all of these pieces, and you see what's going on, you start to see the picture in a different way. And that is what Vice President Kamala Harris was doing with President Giamatti. That is exactly what they were doing. They were manipulating Central America as they did under Obama, as they did when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. This is what they do. And they think we're too stupid to figure it out. January was literally 6 months ago. And Kamala Harris didn't even have time for one conversation about that border. And you want to know why? Because they don't want it to stop. Because they don't want that to end. Because that is exactly what they want. The chaos at the border, at the expense of the lives of those people that are crossing the border, at the expense of our own national security. And I want to read you this little piece. It comes from my website. Go to saracarter.com. Just go there. You'll find all the links, see all the top stories. And this is a really, really important story. And I talked about it on Sean's show, and it's about the 3,000 migrants that basically were handed like a work visa, a pass, permits to be in Mexico. And the reason that the Mexican government handed them those permits is because they want them to come here to the United States. They don't want to deal with them in Mexico. They don't even want to find a place to house them. They're like, we don't even have money for this. We don't want to do this to our people. So Mexico is allowing nearly 3,000 migrants to head straight through to the United States border. And you know what? I don't blame them. Because the Biden administration has basically effectively told people all over the world that our border is wide open, despite what they say to you on MSDNC, despite what they say to you on CNN. The Biden administration has made it perfectly known all over the globe with a gigantic megaphone that the United States is wide open for illegal business. That's what he's done. Well, that's what he and his family have done their whole lives. Just dabbled in illegalities everywhere and lined their pockets, and no one's ever paid the price for it. Right? None of them have. In fact, he's the president of the United States, and his son is selling art for millions of dollars, actually really crappy art for millions of dollars. So, and we don't even know who's buying it. Could be the Russians, could be the Chinese. Who cares? Right? So the Mexican government's like fed up with it. So are the Guatemalans. So is everyone else. And plus, they're not totally innocent either. I know they're lining their own pockets here and there, but come on. In reality, the Mexican government doesn't want all these people staying in Mexico. They're like, screw you. You're the one that overturned all of the executive orders that were under Trump. You're the one that told everybody to come to America. I'm not going to house them and feed them. I'll just give them a pass, let them get to America. If they walk in and you let them in, that's your problem. You can hold them at the border, but you don't want to. So I believe in all reality that the Mexican government is actually doing exactly what I would expect them to do and exactly what they should be doing. Laying it on the line to President Biden. Now, if President Biden had implemented the same policies that President Trump had implemented and the Mexican government was doing that, I would say this is the Mexican government's fault. These people are playing hardball with us. We're going to play hardball with them. But right now, I don't know. You tell me. You tell me. We see what's going on down there. I think they're doing exactly what they need to do to line their own pockets. They're just playing games with the United States because they feel that the United States has been playing games with them. That's what I'm talking about. That's what's important here. Look, what does this say about the United States and its failure on the world stage? I think is very evident. It's very evident with what the Russians did in Ukraine. It's very evident with what happened in Afghanistan with the Taliban. It's evident now that China has basically said, hey, Hong Kong, we own you. It's over now. President Xi made it very clear. They own Hong Kong, right? They own Hong Kong. Taiwan is shaking in its boots because it knows this President Biden, isn't going to do a thing for them. Even his presence is just accelerating China's basically takeover of planet Earth, right? Because they're looking at him and they're like, oh, this is supposed to be the West's savior for the rest of the world. The Marxist communists are like licking their chops right now. Iran is emboldened. Russia is emboldened. Our enemies are all emboldened. Why? Because we have a president that has sold our nation and his soul to the rest of the world. We're not first anymore. That's why, again, I'm going to say it before I end this podcast. Midterms can't come fast enough. 2024 cannot come fast enough. We need new leadership. We need to hold our lawmakers accountable, and we need to get our country back on track, or God help us. Can you imagine? We still have 3 years left almost. Can you imagine having 8 more years of this mess, or even 4 more years of this mess? No, I can't. I can't. Our country is worth too much, and it means too much, not just for us, but for the whole world. We're a beacon of hope and a beacon of light for everyone, and we need to keep it that way. Thank you so much for being a part of the Sara Carter Show. Thank you so much for staying in touch with me, for all the emails, for all the great reviews. I love it. We're doing great. We went up. I'm even like 170 in South Korea. How about that? Or 171. Very excited about that. To all my friends out in South Korea, hello, and thank you for listening to the Sara Carter Show. Guys, I'll be with you again. Remember, we've got somebody really big coming on the show. I'm very excited about it. I talked about it in my last podcast. We've got somebody who's going to be running for office, I believe, and for the presidency of the United States, and somebody who I think is a phenomenal human being. That's going to be coming up on a later show. Again, thank you for being a part of the Sara Carter Show. Go to saraacarter.com. That is saraacarter.com, where you get all the links to all my social media. And by the way, it is there that you can sign up for my email list so that you and I can stay in touch and we won't be shadow banned. God bless you. God bless this great nation. And God bless the great state of Texas.